This is Dimitri Lascaris reporting from Tehran, Iran on May 4th, 2025. I'm currently at the National Aerospace Park of the Islamic Republic. This is in Tehran. We were afforded the opportunity to come here and to be given a tour by the organizers of the Sobe Media Festival. Just to be clear, we were under no obligation to accept the invitation. We were free, in fact, during the morning's activities today to do as we wished. But I was interested in coming here, and so I accepted the invitation along with about 30 other journalists. We arrived about an hour ago, and we were given an introductory presentation by a brigadier general by the name of Ali Belali from the Iranian military's Aerospace forces. And here's a little bit of what he had to say in explaining the background of this facility and the aerospace capabilities of the Iranian military.
عرض خیرمقدم دارم خدمت حضار گرامی به پارک ملی هوافضای سپاه.
He says greetings to all of you and welcome to this National Aerospace Park.
مکانی که شما حضور دارید پارک ملی هوافضاست که سال 99 افتتاح شده و شامل بخش‌های مختلف تسلیحات هوافضایی است.
This national park was inaugurated 4 years ago and includes
تجهیزات نظامی شامل موشک، پهپاد،
military equipment. It includes military equipment, including drones,
missiles, air defense, and something else.
Now, after the Brigadier General Ali Belali finished his preliminary presentation to the journalists, we then proceeded into the facility where numerous drones, which I'm going to show you, and numerous missiles are on display. And as we were coming into the main exhibition area, one of the people in our entourage, foreign journalists in our entourage, Pepe Escobar, asked Brigadier General Belali a quite important question about the fact that the Iranian military has not yet carried out a third military operation against Israel as it had promised to do, and which it had dubbed True Promise 3. Here's the question from Pepe and also the answer. And following that exchange, I myself asked Brigadier General Ben Ali a follow-up question about the deployment of the U.S. THAAD missile defense system, which I understand to be, or purported to be, the most sophisticated air defense system that the American military has. It was reportedly deployed to Israel following initial attacks by the Iranian military on Israel. So here's Pepe's exchange with the Brigadier General and my follow-up question.
No Operation True Promise 3 was interpreted in Washington and in Tel Aviv as a sign of weakness. I would like to know for a huge Western audience, what is the true rationale for canceling or postponing Operation True Promise 3? Thank you. Operation True Promise 3 was interpreted in Tel Aviv and in Washington as a sign of weakness. Why it was postponed? We want to know the real reason, because this information is essential to be disseminated in the West. Please, translate it correctly.
عملیات برای صادق 3 در تل‌آویو و واشنگتن به عنوان ضعف تفسیر شد.
3 هنوز انجام نشده.
اما انجام نشدنش.
یه انجام نشدنش
به عنوان یک ضعف شمرده میشه. و دلیل اینکه تا الان انجام نشده یا به تعویق افتاده چیه؟ منطقش و پپه میپرسن که من دنبال این سوال جدی این انجام نشدنی چیزی را از ایران نمایش می‌کنه و چرا این؟
ببینید مسئولین ما در این خصوص صحبت کردن، گفتن و من هم هیچ مسئولیتی در پاسخ به این سوال ندارم. ولی جهت تنویر فکر شما عرض میکنم خدمت شما که ببینید ما نبردمون
He says that Iranian officials so far they've talked about it, and I'm not in a position to say what was the reason it has been done or not. But according to make you clarify, I will say.
ببینید ما نبردمون با امریکا و رژیم صهیونیستی تازه شروع نشده و به زودی هم پایان پذیر نیست.
He says that our confrontation with U.S. and Israeli regime, it has not been new and it will never finish in a short destination.
و ما تاکتیک هایی که باید انتخاب بکنیم در این نبرد طولانی متناسب با وضعیت خودمون هست و هیچ تفسیری از بیرون نمیتونه در این دخیل باشه.
And he says that the tactics that we are going to use in this operation, it is exactly based on our decision. Nothing from outside, no impression, no interpretation can have any impression or effect in this decision and in this operation and tactics.
ما سربازان رهبرمون هستیم. ایشون فرمودن نه تأخیر میکنیم نه تعجیل میکنیم.
He says that we are soldiers of the leader of the Islamic Revolution. We will never hesitate. We will never postpone. We will never haste.
و سردار حاجی‌زاده هم فرمودن که به موقعش این عملیات انجام میشه.
General Hajizadeh, that we were talking about, he said that at the right time this operation will take place.
هر موضوعی غیر از این حاشیه‌ای که دیگران میسازند.
Anything outside this is just merely a propaganda that it is being made from outside.
و ما اونطور که تا حالا نشون داده هیچ وقت عقب نشینی نکردیم از حقمون از خطوط قرمز.
He says that so far as it is being shown we have never taken any step backward and we will never take a step back from our red lines.
So this is very important. The operation is ready to go. We are just waiting for the right moment. Is that it?
ایشون می‌فرمایند که آیا این درسته که این اپریشن این عملیات آماده انجام فقط منتظر تصمیم
من پاسخگویی این رو میذارم به عهده اونهایی که باید پاسخگو باشن و اون هم ستاد کل نیروهای مسلح هستن و اونها باید جواب بدن. هر موقع که وقتش بشه به ما ابلاغ میکنن، به ما که منظورم به نیروهای مسلح و هوافضاست ابلاغ میکنن عملیات انجام.
He says that I'm not in charge of that, but whenever it is the right time, the armed forces and the IRGC will be announced and we will carry it in, and we will make it take place.
ما هم به عنوان هوافضا نه اینکه نمایشگاه ما اینجا مسئول نمایشگاه
He
هستیم.
says that here we are in charge of this complex, but as a kind of IRGC and Aerospace he's talking.
I know, but I asked the question in court. I know that. I know his role, but I wanted to have his interpretation, which confirms what we know so far.
Yeah.
It's ready to go, but they're waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
مهم اینه که ما خطوط قرمزمون رو کاملا حفظ میکنیم و عقب نشینی ندیم.
He says that 100% we will make our red lines, we will never take a step back.
Can I also ask a question?
Yes, thank you so much. بفرمایید. آقای دیمیتری خبرنگار از کانادا.
Since the true bomb is true, the United States military has deployed the THAAD air defense system in Israel. Do you think that will compromise the ability of the Iranian military to carry out True Promise 3?
سیستم دفاعی تاد امریکا صحبت میکنن که بعد از عملیات وعده صادق 2 انجام شد. ایشون میگن که آیا فکر میکنید این سیستم اون توانایی و اون قابلیت جمهوری اسلامی ایران رو میتونه تحت شعاع قرار بده؟
من فکر میکنم اینو باید از رژیم بپرسید که 2 ضربه وعده صادق 1 و 2 رو تحمل کرده. اونها دیدن. ببینید کل دنیا، ناتو، اسرائیل، امریکا همه جمع شدن جلوی وعده صادق 1 و 2 رو بگیرن. آیا تونستن؟ توانمندیشون در همونجا تفسیر میشه.
He says that in terms of capability of US, I don't know, thought or whatever you say, the Israeli regime should answer to that. But the thing is that NATO, whole world, West, United States, they couldn't postpone Iranian Operation True Promise 1 and 2. And in terms of if we want to say if they are useful for the the Israeli regime, they have to answer, does US capability postpone Iranian operation or not?
Thank you.
Tashakur, thank you so much.
So now I'm going to take you for a bit of a tour of what is on display here. One section is devoted principally to the drone capabilities of the aerospace forces, and another to its ballistic missile and other missile capabilities. That's behind me, so let's go for a walk around and see what we can see. So I'm certainly no drone expert, but it seems to me that these are some of the older models. Brigadier General Ali said that he indicated that the first time that the Iranian military deployed or used drones was actually in the, surprisingly, the Iran-Iraq war when Iraq was led by Saddam Hussein. So some of these drones you'll see here are probably decades old. These ones now, they look to be of a much more recent vintage and considerably more sophisticated. It's surprising how large these drones are. And one would think that a drone of this size could carry a significant warhead. The Brigadier General also discussed the fact that the Iranian military had captured numerous Western manufactured drones and had reverse engineered them and then improved upon them. This one, as you can see, is named the Shahed 129. This may be used for surveillance purposes, but you can see underneath the wing here, it has missile capabilities. Also, surprising how large this is. Now, as we were receiving the preliminary presentation from the Brigadier General, I was, asking myself, why were we afforded the opportunity to come here? I think obviously this is a matter of national pride for the Islamic Republic. The fact that it has developed this drone and missile capability. But I would also imagine that the Islamic Republic wants the international media to draw attention to the missile and drone capability of the Iranian military forces, because the country is under threat by the United States and Israel, and as we have seen over the decades, and particularly during the past 18 months, there really is no limit to the aggression and the barbarism of the American and Israeli militaries, along with their British poodles. I would imagine that one of the goals of bringing the international media here is to communicate to people in the West that if, in fact, a war is launched upon Iran, there is going to be meaningful and quite painful retribution visited upon the military forces that are engaged or called upon to strike Iran. In other words, I think that this exercise has very likely something to do with deterrence. And part of my reason, I think, in fact, let me be clear, my main motivation in coming here and in reporting on the military capabilities that are on display in this facility are to help our fellow citizens in the West understand that a war on Iran would be extraordinarily destructive. This is not a country whose military capabilities are limited to those of an insurgent force, like, for example, the Taliban militants that the NATO military fought unsuccessfully in 20 years of brutal warfare. And if NATO was unable to subdue the Taliban, who had little more than Soviet-era small arms, it would be quite foolish of us to assume in the West, when we're weighing up the actions of our government with respect to the Islamic Republic, that Western militaries would be able to defeat the Islamic Republic. Even more foolish to assume that that could be done without very considerable casualties being sustained by the Western side. So here you can see some of the missile capabilities Again, we were told these some of the missiles on display here are quite old, and they do not include the newer and more sophisticated models, which I imagine are not being put on display for national security purposes. One of the striking things about these missiles is the size of them. I mean, they're really quite enormous. And these missile cones here, I suspect that these are missiles that are capable of delivering multiple warheads. Those cones would open up as the missile approaches its target and release those warheads. And given the size of these missiles, I would imagine that they can carry a very large and destructive payload. Here you can see what is clearly a multiple stage rocket, which they've, the interior of which has been exposed so that people can get some sense of the way in which this enormous rocket actually functions. Let's take a closer look.
It's very scary for me.
It is indeed. Let's hope that.
Crazy war.
Let's hope we avoid the war.
Yes, yes.
That gentleman, by the way, with the wild white hair is Mick Wallace, Irish former member of the European Parliament, and I've interviewed him previously on Reason to Resist. Glenn, do you mind saying a word for the camera? I'm actually doing some filming. Do you mind saying a few words if I ask you a question or two?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So this is your first time to Iran? By the way, sorry, I didn't introduce you properly. This is Glenn Deason, professor of political science at, it's a university in Norway. Could you remind me the name of the university?
University of Southeastern Norway.
Right, and I've had the privilege of interviewing Glenn previously on Reason to Resist. So this is your first trip to Iran, Glenn?
Yeah, no, that's correct.
Right.
Had some plans before, but yeah, this was the first.
What are your impressions thus far?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, well, it's interesting. It's one of those countries where people have a lot of strong opinions about, but most people do not know much about it. Now I would put myself in that same category. It's no, if you see the policies or the tensions between the West and Iran, especially since the 1950s, and how this has been reduced to simply a conflict between radical fundamentalists versus liberal democracies, it's quite a troubling, dishonest portrayal, which also prevents us from actually finding real solutions. But it's also interesting the security approach here, because they obviously see deterrence as being important. This is something that the Brigadier General made clear before, that unless they show willingness to strike back, and not just at American proxies, but directly at American bases, then they would be targeted. So this is the only thing that's keeping them out from being destroyed. And yet I noticed that the whole peace agreements appears to be premised around the idea that Iran should to some extent demilitarize, yet this is the only thing that's keeping them alive. So it is it's fascinating. So I see, yes, a lot of impressions in a relatively short time.
So I have one other question for you, Glenn. I've always been amazed that because you are from the EU, where the kinds of opinions and analysis that you've offered is not particularly popular with the political elite and the corporate media, and now you've come to Iran. Are you concerned, given the current political climate in Europe, and the attitude towards dissenting opinions and criticism of European foreign policy, that coming here could create some issues for you with respect to the European authorities, or is that something you're not particularly concerned about?
Well, we're not European Union though, we're like almost de facto. But it is a wider problem at the moment, I think. The idea that if you go and try to learn a bit about the history and security concern of what your government defines as opponents, you do this little recognition that there's a need to know this in order to reduce the security competition. But sadly, it's often portrayed and perceived as simply being, well, now you're backing this side against us, which is a problem. I think the main problem is not that Iran has to be such a threat to the West. I think the war with Iran is a threat, and it seems quite easy to avoid a war. But again, look where we are now. The United States and Israel might be going to war with Iran. European leaders are dead silent. Everyone has to conform to this narrative around this radical mullahs wanting to get nuclear weapons and destroy Israel. This is their only motivation, taking out the whole history. I think we are deluding ourselves, and we're also depriving ourselves of important opportunities to actually end this conflict. Because a lot of the key security concerns of the Iranians are quite reasonable, and they can be met. So, but there's no discussion.
Well, thank you. You're always a voice of reason and courage, and I know that the people who watch our program really appreciate your analysis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dimitri.
Another thing that's quite striking about this is not just the size of these missiles, but the diversity of them. So many different models, obviously each of them presenting particular attributes. With such a diverse array of missile and drone technology, I would imagine that any adversary would be challenged to defend against a retaliatory strike by the forces of the Islamic Republic. So I'm here now speaking with Claire Daly, former member of the European Parliament from Ireland. Thank you so much for speaking with me today.
My pleasure.
So, first of all, could you tell us, Claire, why you've decided to join the international delegation of journalists at the Sobe Media Festival at this particular time?
Yeah, well, I was honoured to be able to have the opportunity. This is my actually second visit to Iran. I was at a conference on Palestine in 2017, I think. So when the opportunity came up to engage again, I mean, I was definitely going to take it, because it's only by exchanging views and meeting people in different countries that we can develop our humanity. So, yeah, great.
So this brings me to the question of European foreign policy, with respect to which you've been a very outspoken critic, and understandably so. What do you think the policies of the EU ought to be with respect to Iran?
Well, they should develop absolute fraternal relations with Iran. I mean, this Iranian exceptionalism, constantly harping on about human rights in Iran, when there's massive human rights violations all across Europe now, with people being arrested and detained for pro-Palestine activity, not to mention but one is just total hypocrisy. Why would and should Iran be any different? This is an amazing country with an incredible history, great scientific advancement, and have always been to the forerunners of that. And for Europe to sanction these people is absolutely abhorrent. We should be linking in, developing, trading and doing business with Iran. And when we were in the Irish Parliament, we long sought for Ireland to reopen its embassy here and to develop good relations. And there traditionally has been in the past, and there should be again in the future.
So that brings me precisely to the question of Irish government foreign policy. You know, it's well known to people in the Palestinian solidarity community that the people of Ireland are great friends of the Palestinians. But the policies of the Irish government don't seem to be entirely consistent with popular sentiment in Ireland. What's your take on how the Irish government should be dealing with Israel and Palestine, and what particular chagrins you the most, assuming you find it?
It's a very good question, because people across the world think that everybody, and including our government in Ireland, is pro-Palestine, and it's very important to say that they deliver rhetoric, and they have to because they couldn't get away with that. So their rhetoric is a little bit more radical. We recognise the state of Palestine, brilliant, about the 150th country to do with it when Gaza is disappearing. So they're good on lip service, but in terms of actions, they have been as complicit almost as the rest of the European Union, which has been exposed now as to have actively and is actively enabling that genocide. So in Ireland, we have them being a member of the European Union, failing to advance the call to end the favourable EU-Israel Association Agreement, which Israel still benefits from. It still benefits from European taxpayers' money for education programmes in Israel. When they're annihilating education in Gaza and Palestine, Ireland has done nothing about these things, and at home we've actually increased our dual-use goods exports to Israel massively since the genocide started. The Irish Central Bank sells Israeli bonds. So in other words, we're facilitating the war effort in Israel. We allow our civilian airport at Shannon be used by the US military. It's an issue we've highlighted for a long time, including en route to assist the Israelis. So Irish establishment has been absolutely complicit. They just dress it up differently, and that's very important for people to realise that. They bend the knee to European imperialism. They want to be part of the European camp. But really what we're seeing emerging is European colonialism back in the way it always was, that the pretense that a world order and international law is over now. And what they get away with in Gaza is being replicated elsewhere. We see it already in Yemen. These people think they have the right to go anywhere they like, whenever they like, against whoever they like, target civilians. And, you know, somebody here made the point, and it's true this morning, we're looking at the devastation caused here in some of the scenes and the footage from the Iran-Iraq war that obviously devastated this country. But looking at some of the reenactions, when we see it every day now in Gaza, and we know people are being starved, we're almost being acclimatised. This has been normalised now that civilians are targeted. So, and Ireland hasn't done anything about that. I mean, we're uniquely placed as being a former, we're still colonised country. Part of our country is under British occupation still, but we're very much in the Western camp. So we get it with the global South, but we're in the global North camp. That's a unique position to be in. And previously in our history, we used it as that. Like Little Ireland was the first country that moved the first anti-nuclear proliferation treaty. And it got passed. Nobody else could do that. And we had a really great name internationally. But sadly, our government now seems to be hell-bent on eliminating that because they're attacking what's left of our neutrality. They always debased it anyway. But now they're going for a full frontal assault now. They have moves to remove the safeguards upon which Irish troops go abroad. Currently, it can only happen, more than 12 people can only go abroad with the approval of the Parliament, the government and a UN mandate. And the reason why they're changing it is they want to go on missions that don't have a UN mandate. Now, what in the name of God would a country like Ireland have anything to do with that? Go and help in Germany and France rape Africa or exploit Africa for some energy policy? Come on. And having Irish men and women being killed in the service of somebody else's empire? No, people don't want that. And all of the opinion polls show that the people don't want that. But like a lot of other countries in the so-called democratic West, what the people want and what the governments are doing are going in completely different directions. So it will lie on the ordinary people to struggle to change that, unfortunately. And they are. They're beginning. Maybe not quick enough, but they're beginning. So we all have to do what we can and fight where we stand.
Hear, hear. I very much hope we'll see you back in the European Parliament one day soon, Claire. You're greatly missed.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
این پهپاد قرمز 200 رژیم صهیونیستیه که برای شناسایی تو نتنز وارد شده بود که سیستم‌های پدافندی ما کشف کردن و این رو ثابت کردن. خورده پارا تکه‌هاشو جمع کردن، سرهم کردن و اینجا الان شکل دادیم ما. هرمس 200 رژیم صهیونیست.
This is the Hermes 200 drone of the Zionist regime, which was used to spy on Iran's nuclear facilities and was shot down and reassembled and put.
سال 93. 11 سال.
11 years.
این پهپاد
So as you heard, the Brigadier General identified this drone in front of me as an Israeli drone that was spying on or entered Iranian airspace or was close to it and was shot down and reassembled. And you can see over on the side of this drone the symbol of the Israeli Air Force. David, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions on camera?
Sure.
I'm now speaking with Professor David Miller from the United Kingdom. My first question to you, well, first of all, is this is your first trip to Iran? Is that correct, or your second? It's your second trip.
First trip. It's my second trip.
Right. And so, what are your impressions of the country based on the time that you've spent here, and how that compares to the narrative that we hear about Iran in the West?
Well, it bears no relationship at all to the narrative. That was an obvious question. I came here first in 2023, and I spent, I think, 5 nights. We travelled around Tehran quite a lot. But the first thing I would mention is that I went to see the Museum of Holy Defence, which is what they call the Iran-Iraq War, which has a huge set of displays about what happened during the Iran-Iraq War and the extent to which Iran came to the precipice of extinction. It was supported, Iraq was supported in its attack on Iran by 87 countries, and they had 4 countries helping them, including North Korea. And as a result of that experience, they have built themselves up to be the most formidable military actor in the whole of the area, the whole of the region. Much more significant, actually, than the Israelis, although you wouldn't know that. We stand here just now in a place I didn't come to last time, which is quite a sensitive place. It's the IRGC's Aerospace Centre. And behind me, you can probably see the various missiles which are on display here. These missiles are, we just had a wee talk about them. These missiles are really very interesting because they show, on the one hand, some of the missiles which were used in True Promise 1 when Iran responded to Israel's attack on its consulate in Syria. Some of the big ballistic missiles that they used, some of the Shahed drones, some of the cruise missiles, you can see one behind me, which were used in True Promise 1, which of course hit their targets. But we also see here, immediately behind that one, the green one there, that's the Fateh 2 hypersonic missile. That was the only one out of all the ones that they showed us which was used in True Promise 1, which was used in True Promise 2, and which enabled them to penetrate the Israelis' most advanced air defences, and indeed the air defences of the surrounding Arab countries, and indeed the British military and the American military on the ocean. And this is a hypersonic missile which was able to penetrate through to hit the Unit 8200 intelligence base in the Golan Heights and penetrate through to the Nevatim air base in the Nakab or Negev desert, as the Israelis call it. And so what we see here is an extraordinary array of weaponry which has been extremely successful. This True Promise 2 almost exactly pinpoint hits on every target that they tried to go for. But the most extraordinary thing here is that the weaponry we see here is weaponry which is 4 or 5 years behind the curve of their development of weaponry. And there are even 2 large ballistic missiles here just behind you just now.
Could you point those out to us?
Yes, so the purple one here and the green one at the end means that the one in the middle, which is the True Promise 1, it's a ballistic missile.
Right.
And the other 2, the green one and the purple one, have never been used by the Iranians. So although this is 4 or 5 years out of date, this weaponry here, which is still never been used, which has a power which is unimaginable given what we've already seen. So that's an interesting thing. I mean, I kind of knew this in the abstract, but when you see it, the thing which strikes me about the hypersonic missiles, though, Fateh 2, for example, is how small they are. I mean, I should have known maybe, but they're really very small, and these were the missiles which penetrated all of the Israelis' air defences, and they could do so again. We've just been told by a senior IRGC officer about True Promise 3. He was questioned about whether True Promise 3, why it hadn't been executed, why they hadn't done it, and he was very clear that the True Promise 3 remains on the books, it remains ready to go. All we need is an order to carry it out, and it will be carried out, and that will be much more significant than True Promise 2 was. So we see a really very significant armoury here, and an indication that the Iranians are serious. Of course, that's in the context of the leadership of the Iranian government, which looks a bit reformist at present, so there's a power balance there too.
So this brings me to my other question for you, David, and that is that, we're getting conflicting reports about what the objectives of the Trump administration are in these negotiations. most of the time we're told it's about enrichment of uranium by the Iranian authorities. But, I'm sure you know that in the 2025 intelligence assessment of the U.S. intelligence agencies, they expressed the view that Iran is not, in fact, trying to develop a nuclear weapon. Iran was complying with the JCPOA, which set a fairly strict limit of 3.67% enrichment. And yet Trump pulled out. And then you see other indications that it's about more than this. And one subject that has come up is this impressive ballistic conventional missile capability that Iran possesses now. And also its drone capability. Now, I realize this is difficult for anybody standing on the outside who's not in the negotiations, but do you think, based on everything you've heard and seen from the Trump administration in Israel, that they would be prepared to refrain from waging war on Iran if Iran insisted upon the retention of this missile capability? Or do you think they're going to go to the wall on that issue based on what you've seen and heard?
I think it's too difficult to call. I mean, as you say, you've outlined some of the differences, different sort of factors that are in here. We've just been at election where we heard about the response of the Iranians to a threatened attack by Trump back in 2019, I think it was, and Trump threatened to take out IRGC bases, and the IRGC told him what the response would be, and he didn't do it. And there's more evidence in the current period that Trump is amenable to that kind of last-minute brinkmanship. So I'm not putting that beyond the bounds of possibility that some kind of settlement will come out of this. The Iranians, to do that, would need to play hardball, and perhaps more hardball than they're playing at present. On the other hand, Trump has so far has a record of stacking every single possible appointment with crazy hardline Zionists, really, really crazy hardline Zionists. So, and they, of course, are pushing for support for Netanyahu's attack on Iran. So it's been the case so far, for example, that even one of his officials, a Christian Zionist, who was amenable to rationality on these questions, has been forced out. So there's a sort of force field of pressure there. Netanyahu is pressuring them very, very hard, and he knows how to pressure them. Yeah, he has a long experience with that. So I think it's too close to call, but there are signs on both sides that either outcome could be possible.
Right. Well, thank you very much for speaking with us today, David. We'll be talking some more. Take care.
Cheers.
Again, the diversity of the weapon systems available to the Iranian military. If this exhibition is any indication, it's considerable, which again will likely pose quite significant challenges to the military forces of the United States, other NATO countries, which have shown themselves incapable over and over again of defeating adversaries that are not nearly as well equipped as the Iranian military.
ببینید این سوم خرداد همون سامانه‌ای که MQ-40 تراکتور امریکایی رو با یه تیر موشک ساخت. این سامانه
So just in case you didn't hear the translation, the Brigadier General said that these are air defense systems, and this is the system that was used to shoot down during the first Trump administration a Triton drone, which, as the Brigadier General explained, brought Iran and the United States to the brink of war in the first Trump administration, but according to Brigadier General Ben Ali, the Trump administration backed down at the 11th hour when it was told that if the U.S. military struck targets inside Iran, that they would rain missiles down on U.S. military bases in the region.
It can use up to 50 missiles at the same time.
زمانی که هواپیمای MQ-40 تراکتور امریکایی رو زد ارتفاع 53,000 پا بود.
When it hit the MQ-4C Triton, the drone was flying at 53,000 feet.
و سرعتش 600 کیلومتر بر ساعت.
And was cruising at a speed of 600 kilometers per hour.
و مسافتش تا لانچر حدود 89 کیلومتر.
And the distance from launcher was 89 kilometers.
الان ما موشک‌هایی داریم که این مسافت 89 کیلومتر رو میتونه تا 305 کیلومتر هم مورد اصابت قرار بده.
And now we have air defense missiles that can engage targets from around 305 kilometers.
ما خودمون وقتی که شروع کردیم از روی نمونه‌های دیگران کار رو انجام دادیم.
When we first begin our endeavors for air defense, we first based on other foreign models.
مثلا این رادار ساخت شوروی از لیبی به کشور ما وارد شده.
For example, this radar was built in the Soviet Union and was imported to our country from Libya.
ما این رادار 250 کیلومتر برد داره.
This radar has a range of 250 kilometers.
از روی این رو ساختیم 500 کیلومتر.
Based on this model, we designed that model, which has a range of 500.
این 50 هدف رو در آن واحد پردازش میکنه. این 250 هدف رو.
This can track simultaneously track 50 targets, and the other one can track simultaneously 250.
این 4-5 ساعت که کار بکنه داغ میکنه، باید خاموش کنی، یکی دیگه جاش بگذاری، ولی این 24 ساعت کار میکنه.
This model, when it works for like 4 or 5 hours, it heats up and has to be shut down, but the other one, it can work 24 hours a day.
جنگ الکترونیک صفحه رادار اینو سفید میکنه ولی روی این هیچ اثری نداره.
Electronic warfare can completely disable the radar screen of this model, but the other model is completely.
So that completes my report for Reason to Resist from the National Aerospace Park of the Islamic Republic of Iran.